Governor, I'd like to start by sort of taking a look back at what is close to your first full year as governor. And I'd like to start with what you consider so far to be your biggest success.
I think our biggest success is that we've been able to pass a budget in a bipartisan fashion. Democrats and Republicans voted for it. That really makes an investment in our future. And one of the things I said to the General Assembly in my State of the State speech is I said, look, we're going to be asking you to invest in the future. We're going to be asking you to do things where you're not going to see the immediate results. And I think for someone in public office, that's always the toughest thing to do, is because you don't get the immediate results. But when we invest in kids, when we started at a very, very early age and help get them ready for kindergarten, the dividends are going to pay off in years ahead. So it's been a budget that's a futuristic budget that really invests in people, invests in job training. I think our biggest challenge in Ohio is just to make sure that every Ohioan, no matter what their age, has the ability to live up to their God-given potential.
So you went to biggest challenge. The opposite of success is failure. I won't use that word. Instead, I'll ask you, what has been your biggest challenge personally as the governor of Ohio to date?
Well, people sometimes ask me if I've been surprised, by the governor's office and how it operates, and I really have not. But I think one thing you learn very quickly is that things are coming at you pretty quick, and so you have to learn to make decisions very quickly. Yeah. You get the facts. You don't try not to make them prematurely, but when they're ripe, when they're ready to be made, you got to make them, because if you don't, you got 5 more things coming at you, and they're all starting to back up.
Let's boil it down to issues. For you, what's been the biggest challenge from an issue standpoint?
Well, we have unfinished business. I think it's been a good year. We've been able to pass a transportation budget that makes sense, that really invests in our infrastructure and keeps Ohio moving forward. We passed a general budget that is very focused on kids. But we have certainly unfinished business. You always have unfinished business.
What is your top order?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, unfinished business, is what we call Strong Ohio, which is our reaction, frankly, to not only the horrible tragedy in Dayton, but the fact that we're losing so many people to violence in our cities. And so we're taking a real holistic approach, and we've come up with a plan that we know will save a lot of lives. That is pending now in the state legislature.
So a plan, and it's pending. What personally can you do to ensure that there is more action on that plan, that it actually comes to fruition?
Well, Senator Matt Dolan has done a great job. He's the lead sponsor of this bill. They've already had 3 hearings in the Senate. I'm confident that the Senate's going to pass it, and I believe the House is going to pass it as well. But it's unfinished business as we head into the new year. This has not been passed yet.
Will it be done next year?
Oh, I'm sure it will be done next year. But it's important because it's going to save lives. It's in direct response to the tragedy we saw in Dayton, where we saw 10 people who were killed. What I said at the time is, I said, look, we're going to propose something to the General Assembly. We are proposing something that has a chance of passing, a good chance, protects the Second Amendment, has due process in there. No one's rights are going to be violated, but will also save lives. And what we presented to the General Assembly will do that.
I know that throughout your career you've been a huge proponent of children's health, and that continues to be a top priority for you. Why is that so important to you?
Well, Fran and I have 8 children. We have 24 grandchildren. We're focused a lot every day on children. But, what I want for every child in the state is what I want for my own kids, my own grandkids, and that is for them to be healthy, to be able to live their dream, whatever that dream is, to find something that they really have a passion to do, and then help them get there. And health is so very, very important. If you don't have your health, you can't accomplish all your dreams and all the things that you want to accomplish. If you look at Ohio, there's some things that are disturbing. When you talk about young kids, the fact that we now have about a third of our kids in high school who are vaping, and getting addicted to nicotine is a very, very scary thing, because we know how addictive nicotine is, how hard it is to quit. We had gotten in this country down to just a small number of teenagers who were smoking, 4%. But now we're looking at a whole new generation of kids being addicted because of the vaping. Mm-hmm. It's a huge, huge problem.
Speaking of huge problem, opioids have really gripped many parts of the state, and I know that's been one of your biggest priorities, both as Attorney General and now as the governor. What is being done to make sure that the monies that were awarded in some of the settlements now that we're beginning to see, what is being done to make sure that that money is earmarked for the places that need it most?
Well, the money that we're going to get in settlement money, both at the local level and at the state level, needs to go to addiction. We should not take this and spend it on something else. We made a mistake, I think, in regard to the tobacco settlement a couple decades ago, when it was decided to take that money and to go spend it, and not to spend it on smoking cessation, not to spend it on that. We have a high smoking rate in the state. It's higher than the national average by 3 or 4 percentage points. Mm-hmm. It's driving a lot of our costs, our medical costs, for example, in the area of Medicaid, which is paid for by taxpayers, and it's making people not as healthy. So I think that it's important that we take this money and not put it on something else, that we focus on prevention. One of the things I'm trying to do is we're trying to pull together the cities that have filed lawsuits, the counties that have filed lawsuits, and the state, where I filed lawsuits as the Attorney General when I was Attorney General, and all come together. And I think we're about there, so that we can have a united front with these companies. And I think we will get more money, frankly, and we'll be in a better position to get settlements from them.
Addiction, prevention, very important. But I recently spent some time at a foster home in Cuyahoga County and was alarmed that the number of children in foster care in Cuyahoga County alone is just short of 3,000. And these are innocent victims. Many of them are there because they're innocent victims of the opioid epidemic. What do you say to those that believe that money needs to go to care for these kids and to make sure that they're living some sort of quality of life, being innocent victims of users?
Well, these kids in foster care, many of them are there because one or both parents are drug addicts. So they are the collateral damage of this drug epidemic. We saw that, and so I doubled the amount of money that's going to local children's services. In addition to that, we have put together a task force to really go around the state, hold hearings, listen to foster parents, listen to kids who have been in foster care themselves, and come up with a plan to reform foster care in Ohio. It's not just a question of giving more money, which we had to do, we needed to do. But I think we had to have some reforms in the area of foster care. Look, we have too many kids who are aging out in the sense that they never are able to be adopted. And they turn 18, and they've never been adopted, they've been in the system, and then they have nobody to help them. So we've got to deal with that problem. That is a huge, huge problem. And I'm confident that the group we put together is going to come back with some very specific reports and recommendations.
I have a bit of a hot potato for you, and that's impeachment. It's become the divisive topic of the moment nationally, and many Ohioans want to know from its highest elected official where you stand on that issue. Which side are you on?
Look, I'm focused on Ohio issues.
I understand that. I fully understand that. But I also think that the people that I've spoken to use this as a benchmark issue.
Well, I took an oath to be governor of the state of Ohio. We have problems that we're focused on every single day. When I was in the United States Senate, I was there for 12 years. I was there during the impeachment of President Clinton, when the House of Representatives impeached the president, sent the case over for trial in the United States Senate. What I said at that time was that I would not make a decision until I'd heard all the evidence, until all the evidence was in, and actually the trial took place.
Mm-hmm.
So I was focused on that every day because that was my obligation.
Sure.
I'm not focused on this every day. I don't think the people of the state of Ohio elected me to opine and to be on talk shows at night and to talk about what my opinion is of the impeachment of the President of the United States. So I haven't studied it. I know no more than the average Ohioan knows. I think I need to focus on what I'm doing every single day.
Understood.
The President.
Sure. What would you say to Ohio voters, though, that don't accept that as an answer?
I would say that when I was in the United States Senate, I had an obligation to vote on whether Bill Clinton was going to be convicted or not. And I weighed all the evidence and I made that decision. What I would say as governor of the state of Ohio is that my job is to focus every single day on what we're doing in Ohio. I'm very proud of what we've done. And I'll say this, the division that we see in Washington, the American people don't like.
How do we fix that, Governor?
They don't like it.
How do we fix that?
We fix it by what we've done in Ohio. We passed a budget. We've passed several budgets. We passed a number of other legislation in a bipartisan fashion. We have pulled Democrats and Republicans together. We're doing things in Ohio that we've never done before. Just one example, wraparound services for young people, $650 million. We did in a bipartisan fashion. We sent out to our local schools because what we kept hearing from teachers is, look, I can teach my kids in class. It's what goes on outside the classroom or doesn't go on outside the class. And these kids are traumatized because they're living with a parent who's a drug addict or they don't have food. So we put together a plan that now is going out to our local schools.
What are they missing in Washington that you have here in Ohio? Because you have passed bipartisan bills here. What are your...
The day I took office, I started working with the legislature, both Republicans and Democrats. Fran and I have had, I think, every member of the legislature over to our house for breakfast at least once.
So it's building relationships with the other side?
It's personal relationships, and when you build those personal relationships, what you find is that you may disagree on some issues, but when you get down to issues about kids, when you get down to issues about health care, when you get down to infrastructure, that you can find a common bond. These are Ohio issues. We need to move this state forward. I'm very optimistic about the future of the state of Ohio. You know, I think the spotlight is really coming back to the Midwest. We intend to lead in the Midwest, and the investment that we're making in the people of Ohio is what is allowing us to move forward.
One more impeachment question and then a fun question. How do the articles of impeachment against President Trump, in your mind, compare to the articles of impeachment that you voted yes for as a member of the Senate against Bill Clinton? What is the comparison? Is there a comparison?
I don't know if there's a comparison. Look, there's nowhere in the Constitution does it define high crimes and misdemeanors. And it's really up to the individual member of the United States Senate whether they think that it rises to that level. But
does it in your mind, what you know about it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. Look. The people of Ohio, I don't think, expect me to spend a lot of time studying. When I was this issue, they expect me to do my job as governor of the state of Ohio, and I intend to do that.
What does Ohio State have to do to beat Clemson? That's the question all Ohioans want the answer to.
Well, Ohio State's a great team. Clemson's a great team. Clemson is, not been rated quite as high because I think they've had a weaker schedule. But no one can underestimate Clemson. They have a phenomenal coach who I think gets the most out of the players. They've got a great team. I plan on being there and rooting for Ohio State.
Do you feel confident enough to call the governor of South Carolina?
Oh, we're going to have a bet. We're going to have a bet.
What is the bet? What, in your mind, what are you
Well, I don't know. But what I'm going to ask the governor is what the governor, whether we can have some barbecue because, South Carolina, they always brag about their barbecue.
They know how to do it.
Yeah, and because I'm confident we're going to win, I'm looking forward to eating that barbecue.
I hope you're right.
I think so.
Governor, thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.